Guys, something really strange is happening in Delaware's housing market right now. On one hand, in certain areas, we have these homes that are going for over asking price and they're gone before they even hit the market. But then on the other hand, we have homes that are sitting, we're seeing price reductions, and we have these builders who are giving out incentives and buying down rates like they're Oprah Winfrey. So it leads us to the $1 million question that I keep getting asked is, Brandon, should I buy a home in 2026? And what do you think is going to happen with the housing market? And the truth is that I don't know. Anyone who says they do know is just a flat out liar. But what I am going to do in this video is that I'm going to break down the numbers, real numbers for Delaware for, the last quarter. I'm going to tell you what I've been seeing in the market as far as real life examples with clients that I've helped. And what do I think the future of Delaware real estate is going to look like, depending on factors that I've seen before, and try to give you some sort of reasoning behind the madness. So if you're a buyer or a seller, you're definitely going to want to watch this video. You're going to get a ton of value out of it, and I think you're going to learn a lot. But with that being said, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Brandon Windom. I help people buy and sell homes here in Delaware. I'm a Delaware realtor. I've lived here my entire life, and on this channel, I talk about everything you need to know as far as buying, selling, or living here in the state of Delaware. And with that being said, if you're potentially thinking about buying or selling a home here in Delaware, I'd love to have a conversation to see how I can potentially help you. And I'll put my info on screen now and again in the description below. So one of the questions I'm frequently getting asked now with all the uncertainty, in the economy and everything, is my clients are asking me, Brandon, should I wait or should I buy a home now? Or what do you think is going to happen in the market? And again, guys, I can give an educated guess, but I'm looking at the data and looking at the trends. So I want to actually tell you what those numbers are. So, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So, what I'm going to do is go through this, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm actually going to break it down by county and give you some of the key figures that I use, everyone you should use in order to, kind of see what the state of real estate is here in Delaware. So first off, what we're going to start in, I got all my numbers right here. So first off, what we're going to start with Newcastle County, and that's going to be at the top of the state, and that is actually our most populated. So we only have a little over 1 million people here in Delaware, and almost 60% of our population lives in Newcastle County. So needless to say, that's a lot. And that's going to include places such as Wilmington, Claymont, Bear, Newark, Middletown, Odessa, Townsend, very common places that I'm sure if you've done any research on, you've heard of and you've seen, and maybe you're interested in them. So if you're interested in those areas, you're definitely going to want to, stick around for this part. So the way I like to do it is look at 2024 opposed to 2025, because if I just tell you the numbers, you really don't have any perspective. You don't have anything to compare it to. And we don't want to be comparing to national averages and stuff like that, because it's really not going to do us any good specifically for the Delaware market. So what I'm doing is this is going to be Q4, so October, November, December. So going into this new year, what we've been seeing. So the first number that I like to use is the amount of homes that have actually been sold. So back Q4 2024, it was 1,408. And now if we fast forward to Q4 of 2025, that's 1,439. So we definitely saw an increase there. So meaning that homes are still selling. And honestly, Q4 historically is typically one of the slower times in the market. So more homes have sold as of last year. The next one I like to use here is the median list price. So in 2024 in Newcastle County, that was $345,000. We're fast forwarding to 2025, that skyrocketed to $375,000. So it is increasing. I know if you look at different markets and, everything is a little different. That's why I tell people I have a lot of people who are from out of state and they're comparing, what's going on in their state to Delaware. And it's its own different little beast here. So you definitely got to pay attention. And another reason why I'm breaking down the counties, because it does get so minute here. I mean, you can drive 5-10 minutes somewhere else and that market looks totally different. You'll see it, especially in Wilmington. People talking about like, some people, Wilmington has a bad reputation. I mean, if you're talking about inner city, if you're talking about the inner city, I mean, yeah, it looks a lot different there than out more so in the countryside. You got to remember, like, Biden lives in Wilmington, guys. Like, there is money out there. So you definitely need to be paying attention to this specific area. The next thing is the median sold price. So in 2024, that number was 361,000. As of 2025, that's 385,000. So guys, these prices are going up. I mean, and well, I'll save that for the next part. What I'm seeing happen and what I think is going to happen. So the amount of homes that went pending. So basically, how many homes went under contract in Q4? Well, actually, I'm going to do this as December because you can't really do it as a quarter because you can't really average it out. But I guess I could do the total amount pending. But in December, it's 265 homes that we saw in 2024. And in 2025, it was 250 homes. So more houses, like I said, more houses sold. Everything is up in Newcastle County. So the next one I like to use is the average months of inventory we have. So basically what that number is stating is how many months, if no one else ever put their house on the market again, how many months of inventory will we have before there was none left? And this is a good indicator. In a truly balanced market, you're going to want, 6 months. And then after you get over 6 months, obviously, it turns into a buyer's market and a seller's market, those type of things. As of right now, 2024 Q4, it was 1.9 months of inventory. And as we look now in 2025, it's 2.1 months of inventory. So that's a good thing. It means that we have more inventory. We're holding more inventory right now, although it may not be a lot, but at least it's something because Lord knows we need it. The next number is the days on market. So this is a really important number. If you don't really see anything else, this is one of the ones you really need to pay attention to. Because this is how many days on average it's taking from a house to go from active to under contract. And so as of right now, in 2024, the average days on market for Q4 was 26. So, I mean, this is in the slow time of the market, guys. So in Newcastle County, like I said, it is very densely populated. 60% of our population is there, about 60%. So it's not even our biggest by land mass. So it's very densely populated. A lot of people need homes. A lot of people are moving here and we just need that inventory. But with that being said, in 2025, that has gone up, not a lot, but it has gone up. So it's gone up to 28 days. So on average, from when you see the home to when it's going under contract, you got about a month. And again, that's going to vary wildly. If it's overpriced, it's going to sit. If it's very, in a very advantageous area or a very sought after area, it might be less than that. And then as far as the active amount of inventory we see on the market, just in Kent County, as far as the homes that are still active, like our active inventory. On 2024, in December, it was around 819. So we pulled about 819 into the new year. And this year it's 879. So that's definitely a good sign that we're seeing more homes. And if you're a buyer, this is good news just because as we're seeing more homes, obviously it's a simple case of supply and demand. So more homes, more homes and less demand or the same amount of demand is going to help with those prices. But as you're going to see, Newcastle County is probably the hottest market that we have in Delaware. So the next county that we have here is Kent County. And so that's going to be central Delaware. And that's going to include places such as Smyrna, Dover, Camden, Magnolia, Felton, pieces of Milford, Harrington, places like that. Kent County I always mess around and I say Kent County is kind of like the redheaded stepchild. So it kind of gets overlooked, but I really do think that's going to change, and it's starting to change just because the affordability, as far as, location wise, to get back and forth if you're someone who maybe needs to travel to northern Delaware, or you go back home, or you're going to see family in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, even Maryland. As far as like travel times, Kent County is kind of central Delaware. And as far as, location, ease, and everything else, and even price that you're going to see, I think that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And that's what I typically tell my clients. But don't just take my word for it. Like I said, just don't. I'm just a random realtor on YouTube. But I'm going to give you the numbers here. So as far as sold in Q4 of 2024, in Kent County, it was 557 homes. And as of this year, it's 561. So a little more, not a big thing. So it's kind of staying somewhat steady. As we're going into the median list price, so what that median list price that you typically see, right now it is 300. Well, in 2024, I keep saying right now. Sorry, guys. So in 2024, that number was $360,000. Now in 2025, we see that as $345,000. So quite a significant drop, which is, good news for buyers. I mean, maybe not so good news for sellers. As far as the median sold price for 2024, that was 350,000. And for 2025 for Q4, it was 338,000. So again, another drop. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the reason why I think this is happening, or the main reason, is that we're just getting a lot more inventory. So the main difference between kind of Newcastle County and Kent County is that there's a lot more land in Kent County. So we're seeing a lot more new construction open up. So, more inventory. If you don't have any land, obviously you can't build, you can't create new supply. You have to wait for either someone to pass away or someone to move out of the state. And the way it's looking, more people are moving in than out. So I think that's a big reason why we kind of saw that drop there, especially in Kent County, because there is a lot of land here. And I mean, as you can tell, if you're looking on my channel, you see a bunch of new construction communities, and a lot of them are popping up in the Kent County area. As far as the homes that went into pending status, 2024, December 2024 of last year was 109, and December of 2025 this year is 136. So more houses pended, more houses sold. And like I said, guys, I think it's a golden opportunity right now, especially for kind of central Delaware, is because I still think it's flying under the radar a bit. Everybody is, much more concerned with the Newarks, the Bears, the Middletowns, the Wilmingtons, the Lewis, the Milton, down in Sussex County, Rehoboth, places like that, central Delaware flies a little bit under the radar. And I think it's still a good chance to, scoop you up a nice house before, it's gone. But the average month of inventory that we have. So again, if another house didn't come on the market, how long would it take? So as in 2024, that number was 3.2 months. So almost double. We're almost doubling in Newcastle County. And then for 2025, it stayed the same at 3.2 months. The next number is days on market. In 2024 Q4, the average days on market was 42 days. So, like I said, exactly double. So homes are staying, almost twice as long in Kent County than they are in Newcastle County. And that number in 2025 did increase to 49. So the average days on market as of Q4 2025 is 49 days on market. And as far as the active inventory that was here December 2024, 582. And as of right now, Q4 2025, December, because like I said, we just took the most recent month, is 547. So as of, so that number dropped almost by 40 homes. And like I said, I think people are starting to catch on because as I'm talking to more and more people, they'll tell me they're looking in this area, and then they'll start doing their research, and, maybe I'll send them homes and things like that. And you'll see that a lot of people are choosing like, hey, I can just drive 20 more minutes south and get a lot more bang for my buck. And people are choosing to do that. But again, so now we're going to be diving into our southernmost county, because there's only 3 here. So Newcastle at the very top, Kent in the middle, central, and then Sussex down at the bottom. So Sussex County is actually our largest county by landmass. And the reason why I'm kind of telling you that is because if you look at the geography of Delaware, it kind of goes down and then it gets very wide at the bottom. So that's our biggest by landmass. And the way I kind of divide Sussex County into, you kind of got the eastern side, you got central, and then you got west. So on the eastern side, that's where all the beaches are going to be. So that's going to be Lewis, Rehoboth, Milton, Dewey, all those other places that are along the eastern side. So more so that beach town-esque. Right there in the middle, you're going to have places like Georgetown, Millsboro, Selbyville. So they're not going to be too far away from the beach. They're going to be kind of beach adjacent. And then over on the west side, where you're going to be much more rural and you're going to be closer to like Maryland, you got the places like Greenwood, Seaford, and Laurel. And I know you're like, Brandon, like, why are you telling me all this? Why is this important? So it's kind of to give you an idea, because Sussex, since it's very different and it's a lot bigger, you're going to hear these higher price points, but it just depends on where you're looking at. I mean, you're talking about a $1 million, $2 million house, maybe like right on waterfront property, but you kind of can't compare that to over on the western side if you're talking about somewhere in, if you're talking somewhere in Seaford or Laurel, and then, or if you're talking about right in the middle in Georgetown. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, because $1 million over on the eastern side is not going to look like $1 million on the western side. I mean, you're going to have plenty of acreage in a huge old house if you're trying to build $1 million house in, Seaford or somewhere. But I'm getting off topic. Again, so let's run through these numbers. So Sussex County Q4 2024, the amount of homes sold was 1,670. That 220, I'm sorry, 200, guys, the 2025, geez, it's 1,412. So we saw a decrease. And again, I think it's just because there's just a lot of inventory down there. I mean, as you can tell, the amount of inventory in Sussex County sometimes doubles and triples everywhere else, just because there's a lot of land down there. The median list price for 2024 was $489,000, and now in 2025 that number shot up to $500,000. And again, guys, if you're looking, so like these, I feel like these numbers more so if you're looking more so of the eastern and maybe central part of Sussex County. If you go over to that west side, you're going to get a bunch more bang for your buck. But again, when I've talked about how chickens outnumber us 200 to 1, that western side is where it's at. That's where all the rural farmland is. So, I mean, if you're somebody who wants that, I mean, you're definitely going to find an opportunity there in that. Now we're talking about the median sold price. In 2024, that was $473,000. That median sold price in 2025 is $464,000. So it's gone down. So, I mean, what this is telling us that people, like I said, we're getting some of that ease, or, where it's not, you got to do it right away. We're seeing that, sometimes when they're listing the house, we're seeing those price decreases. We're seeing things like that. And that's what I was saying. On one hand, in certain parts, you're not seeing a ton of it in Newcastle County because it's so scarce up there. But since down in Sussex County and Kent County, and you're seeing these options, you're seeing some parts where we're seeing these price decreases, or we're seeing these builders give out, incentives or drop in their price. The amount of pended homes that was in 2024, it was 253, and in 2025 that number was 204. The average months that you have, average months of inventory, 2024 Q4 in Sussex County, it was 3.8 months. So as you can see, at that point, exactly double of what we saw in Newcastle County. And now that number has actually gotten even higher at 4.6 months. So if you're someone looking in that Sussex County area, depending on where you're looking at, you're going to have a lot of inventory to choose from. And honestly, to be honest with you, there's going to be a lot of new construction. They're building like crazy out there just because they have the land and they know the need for it. The demand is there. The average days on market in 2024, it was 50 days on market, and now this is the highest in all of the counties. That's actually 65 days now in 2025. And as far as the active inventory, that was in 2024 for December, it was 1,856 homes. And in 2025, that number has grown again to 2,050 homes. And like I said, they're building like crazy down in Sussex. So that's the reason why you're seeing that. And you kind of need it. I mean, there has been a big demand for homes just in Delaware in general. So now that we've kind of gone over the numbers and you can see the raw data, kind of this is a little bit more of just generally what I've been seeing in the market. And I guess I can break this down for both buyers and what I've had for sellers. I know I do a lot of buyer content on here, but I do list and sell a lot of homes as well. So if you're someone who's potentially looking at selling your home here in Delaware, obviously feel free to reach out to me. I do both, but I know here on YouTube, you see a lot more of the buyer side. So for my buyers, what I've been seeing typically in the market is that it just kind of depends on exactly where they're looking for, or what they're looking for and where they're looking at. In Newcastle County, I mean, as you can tell by the numbers, it just gets very the inventory is just very scarce up there, and it is. You do run into the occasional bidding war, or you do run in where you got to move a little bit faster. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a resale or new construction, if you're looking for new construction in, Newcastle County, guys, mainly you're just going to be, kind of in the MOT area. You're going to be in Middletown, Odessa, Townsend, the Appoquinimink School District. It's kind of the only place where they have land. There are some little pockets here. There's, I think a 55 plus community in Newcastle. There's some condos here in Newark. But when you're looking at that price point is very high. They do have some in Wilmington as well. But I mean, those price points, that's luxury. You're talking about $800 to maybe even $1 million. So what I'm seeing for buyers. But for the other two counties, I'm seeing you have a lot of choices when it comes to new construction, or if you're looking at a resale home. And typically, depending on where you're looking at, that you're able to have some negotiating power. Either the seller has come down off their price, or you're able to negotiate like, hey, I need $5,000 in, potential closing costs to try to, recoup some of that money out of your pocket, or you're able to, take your time and actually look around at homes and it's not like a fire. Or if you're talking about the new construction side, I mean, I've seen these new construction builders do some weird stuff, guys, that I typically have not seen. I mean, I can remember one time where they were giving away free basements. But what I'm seeing as of now is that they are very motivated. They're just as confused or weary about the upcoming economic situation as well. So they're willing to, they're giving these price rate drops. They're buying down your rate. They're giving closing costs. They're coming down off of their prices. They're throwing in, free incentives, free bathrooms, free upgrades, things like that. So for the buyers, I think this is a very advantageous opportunity because we don't know what the future is going to hold. As far as the sellers, I still think this is a good time to sell. People aren't getting absolutely, killed on their pricing, but they do have to be realistic. It's not to the point of saying, I just pick a number, you just throw a dart on the board. I mean, if you're with a real estate agent that's looking at the data on the market and actually being truthful with you, just not telling you whatever you want to hear to get your business, and they price it correctly and you price it correctly, then we're seeing it go, within, 30, 45 days or so. But again, sellers, they do have to be reasonable. You might have to fix some things, or you may have to, help out with closing cost concessions. But I do still think it's a good time, because of what we're seeing, these interest rates go down a bit. A lot of these sellers, if you're a seller or you're potentially thinking about, making that move, that you're not kind of caught in those golden handcuffs anymore with those super low rates. I mean, obviously a 3 and a 4.99 is a little different, but I mean, I know there was a builder out there that was offering an ARM at like 3.75, and I actually just signed 2 people at 4.99. So I mean, it's not that much of a difference. If it is, don't get me wrong, but it's not like when we're talking about someone going from a 3% rate to a 7% rate. So I think this is a good time where you can still get, top dollar for your property, and then not have to give it all to buy a new house. Because I know people are saying they're waiting, if these rates drop, we might go into another, semi-feeding frenzy. But, for sellers, that's good. But also, if you become a buyer on the other end, you're in the same market. So right now, I think it's kind of neutral right now. If anything, if you're looking at more so new construction, I think they're giving a ton of deals out right now. So if you're selling your house, you get good dollar for it. And then you can just take that money, roll it in, get a good rate, get some incentives and things of that nature. Then, it could be a win for you. But now we're talking about, what do I think is going to happen for the future, and why do I think that's going to happen? So in the future, guys, looking into 2026, it's very, I guess the word, it's just that no one really knows, honestly. Anybody who's definitively telling you like they know what's going to happen, they're a liar. But from what I have been seeing, and guys, I really don't like going into the politics and all that other stuff, but it's essential to understand what's going on. So when you're looking at the unemployment rate, you're looking at the mortgage-backed securities, you're looking at what the Federal Reserve is doing, and things like that. It's just something you have to take into consideration, at least me as a real estate agent, to provide the highest level of service to my clients. So from what I've been seeing, we're seeing inflation is going up. I know they saw the last CPI report that we just had. It was a little under, but again, guys, they revised those numbers, so I would not be surprised to see a revision in those numbers. Unemployment is going up, and then as of December 1, they said that they're stopping quantitative tightening. So that's when they were controlling the books and purposely shrinking or trying to shrink their book from the national deficit, and now they said they're calling it quantitative. Well, they're not calling it quantitative easing anymore. But I mean, it's the same thing. They're printing money. And we all know what happens when you print money, inflation goes up and our money loses value. And so everybody is looking into assets. I mean, even in the stock market, I mean, people are looking towards physical assets now. Gold and silver are on a crazy tear, and people want things they can actually hold, that hold intrinsic value, not just numbers on a paper somewhere. So a saying that I've come to hear a lot is that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so in my mind, I'm not super old, but the last time I can remember where we were very uncertain about the economy, and we saw, unemployment going up and GDP shrinking, and the government decided to start printing money or quantitative easing or whatever you want to call it. The last time I can remember that happening was the pandemic, guys. And we know what happened to home prices during the pandemic. Now, I don't want to fear monger or anything like that and say that it's going to be something of that scale all over again. But I mean, guys, they're printing. We're printing money with quantitative easing. You know, they said they have to print. God, I don't even know what the number was. It's something ridiculous. And then when they start doing that, you know, if they start buying back bonds like what they did during the pandemic, then that's going to artificially decrease the interest rate. And we all know what happens when the interest rate goes down. Typically, is that more buyers come to the market. And as you heard from the numbers, guys, you know, people were buying. This is the last quarter from Q4 of 2024 and Q4 of 2025. Guys, I mean, interest rates were like 6-7% in 2024 and even into 2025, and people were still building. So what do you think is going to happen when we start seeing these 4% or these, you know, 3%? I mean, I don't know if we'll see anything like that, but when you start seeing these 5 and 4%, when people were, you know, kind of used to 6 and 7, it's just going to flood the market with buyers. And, you know, it's very simple, supply and demand. We know we don't have enough supply. You can see that from the numbers. And if the demand, you know, doubles or triples because of, you know, lowering interest rates, I mean, that's going to shoot prices up. And coming in this next year, I mean, they've already said they're starting to print money. But the main thing that I think we're going to see, I think it's going to reach a, you know, tipping point, or where we're going to see a lot happen is in May, in the middle of the year, you know, Q2, Q3, because we're going to get a new Fed chair. Jerome Powell, his term is over, and then the current president is going to put in a new Federal Reserve chair. And if you've paid attention to what the president's, you know, moniker, or I guess thoughts are on interest rates, is he wants them dropped immediately. So whoever he selects to be there is probably going to share his rhetoric. So I do believe that interest rates are going to come down. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I have no, I can't tell you definitively. But if you get to put someone in a position that is, you know, that's going to affect the federal funds rate, and you want rates to come down, typically you're going to select someone who shares your same peace of mind, right? That only makes sense. So I do think that we're going to see these rates come down even more. I mean, they're at the lowest they've been in the last year or two already. And a lot of people have FOMO. You know, after the pandemic and these rates spiked, people are like, man, I should have bought towards then. So there's a lot of people sitting on the fence just waiting for their time. And then you have a lot of sellers who, like I mentioned before, were in the golden handcuffs. You know, they were like, I just can't do it. This rate's too low. I can't stop it. I got to keep this rate. But now, you know, they may be more willing to, you know, part with that house and maybe move on to something else, or, you know, maybe move to Costa Rica or somewhere, or retire overseas. Who knows? But they may be willing to do that with these lower rates, you know, or move or downsize, or maybe just rent. Who knows? But I do think that we are going to see the market heat up, especially here in Delaware. I can't speak for other places, you know, Florida's and the Carolinas or Texas. I can't really speak towards that. I'm just, you know, the reason why you're watching is because we're talking about Delaware. I can only really speak to Delaware. We haven't really slowed down much. I mean, we have slowed down a bit, but we haven't slowed down much. The amount of people influxing to Delaware is growing. And if we see something, you know, to the point of these rates coming down, even in an artificial aspect, because, you know, we're printing money and buying the bonds, I just think that's going to accelerate the rate of kind of the problem that we have here, is that we just don't have enough inventory for the amount of people wanting to come here. And then you add new buyers, new sellers, and everything into that mix. I just think that we're poised to see another, you know, above average increase in home prices here in Delaware in this upcoming year. So if you're someone who has the means and you're ready, or you have the need, I don't really see a big benefit in waiting. Honestly, I mean, I just don't see it. I do think we're going to see more inventory, just because people are going to sell and maybe they're willing to sell maybe some of these starter homes. That's the main thing that we need, is that we don't have a lot of entry level inventory for the local people here. For the locals here in Delaware, you see a lot of people retiring, coming from out of state and buying these, bigger homes. So I do think we will see some, maybe with that, maybe people willing to let go of those starter homes that they bought because they're not caught in those golden handcuffs anymore. But I know I've been rambling for quite some time, but what I see for the future is that I think home prices are going to continue to go up. I just don't see where it stops. We're not building fast enough. And people aren't, exiting Delaware or, in a rush to sell their property. I just think these prices are going to continue to go up. And depending on what these interest rates do, which I believe all signs point to, they're going to get lower. I mean, when the unemployment rate is, shooting up, they don't want the economy to, the GDP to shrink. So they're going to have to make the money cheaper so people can grow. So, and then, like I said, we're going to get a new Fed chair in May, and I'm sure they're going to share the rhetoric of the president to where as though lower rates to stimulate the economy. And when that happens, I just think we're going to see higher rates. I don't say this to scare you guys. I just say this to prepare you. It might be a good time to be looking in some of these new construction. Maybe if you don't need to move right now, and, you're thinking about maybe June, July, August, that summer of 2026, might be a good time to start looking now. Maybe you can get under contract, get some of these, incentives that they're holding. It's going to take you 6 to 7 months to build the home anyway. You're going to lock in your pricing. Chances are is that if you can afford the interest rate now, by the time maybe May, June, July comes around, that might look lower. I mean, again, I don't know. Don't trust a random guy a random realtor that you're watching on YouTube. But chances are that rate may be even lower. And then if the rates have been getting lower, chances are you may walk into appreciation as well. But you can lock in that lower price now, lock in all those great incentives, and then reap the benefits 7-8 months down the line. And I've had this. I know this is a hypothetical, but and things could go left or right, who knows? But I've had this happen to clients as of the last year. The rates were higher. They got in a community. They locked in their low pricing. People were building. So, typically after these builders sell a few homes, they up those prices. So, from where their base price was to where it was when they actually closed was almost $30,000 more. They got a bunch of closing costs off. I think they got like $20K in assistance because it was a little bit slower. And then on top of that, by the time they closed, rates had gone down. So they got a lower rate. They had appreciation, built-in appreciation. And you know what I mean? They got to save their money because, I mean, when you guys are buying these new construction homes, you're just going to need your down payment. You don't need all the funds. You just need whatever they need to start building. The rest of that money isn't due until you close. So they were able to do that, save their money up. And then when they came to the closing table, come to look at it, the appraisal's 30, 40 grand more. And then they got a lower rate on top of that. So it may be a good thing for you to maybe look into. If not, that's cool too. If you have a shorter timeline, there's a bunch of resale homes out here to where as though you could potentially just get into a home for a great price. And if you're selling, obviously it's still not a bad time to sell. Homes are still selling. But I know I've been talking way too much, guys. I know me droning on. I kind of get off. That's why I need a script. But with that being said, if I haven't scared you off and you're still potentially thinking about buying or selling here in Delaware and you want to learn more about Delaware or maybe see some of those new construction communities that I was talking about, I'll put them right over here.